And now we're going to wrap the whole thing up. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm going to share some emails that I received from some fellow students, your fellow students, in the past that had questions about the feasibility study. So we're going to call this like a FAQ, right? The FAQ. This student said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to work on. I'm confused. And this was my response to the student. I said, okay, well, what would we like to work on? It looks like our personal value pitch. I was looking at that. Here's was for starting a book club, and our exploring innovation was a version of Instacart for food delivery. And I looked at your pain grid there, and it was on a fitness program that you wanted to put together for elders. So, did you do a power and interest grid or your startup network one? Uh, I looked at your contract, it looked perfect. And I said, all the ideas are great ideas. If we're going to do the fitness program, if that's where we want to go, great. Then the next step is to do something like the exploring innovation for the fitness program. Now, remember, the exploring innovation is where you look up the background. Okay, so you're learning a little bit about the industry and about the market and all the stuff that have to do with the background of the thing that you want to do your feasibility paper on. So theoretically, you've already done it, right? This is all the stuff you're going to put in your industry, your market information, product information. It's all going to come from you looking it up. If you haven't done that, you better do that because that's important. That goes in there. So the next step is do something like the exploring innovation if you're going to do the fitness program for a fitness program. Take a look at what elders do now for fitness. I know personally it's mostly PT because I have three elder family members that are all elder, and that's what they get. They do PT. There's a huge need for better training for after PT, and I can attest to that. So if we go there, let's pick a location where you want to do it first. Okay. I assume you want to sell it on YouTube. That's right. Is that right? And if so, we're halfway there. Next is to figure out how to get paid. Okay. Also, what will it look like, the fitness program? We'll describe that in the product and service section. Then we'll take our research from the library, possibly from IBIS World, on the industry of fitness, the market for it on YouTube, and put that with the graphics and the charts, see, as described in the rubric. So follow the rubric in our industry section, and then the market customer section. You'll look at the rubric for how many of each, including the pain grid and the startup network. Then, after we guess how we can get paid, we're going to start putting those numbers and costs to get and serve customers in the income statement and the financial section. And then we're going to put our startup network and the power interest grid people in the founding team section. And then the answers to how we get paid in the sales section. Once we have and then read all of that stuff, does it seem feasible? And if not, what would have to happen to make it feasible? It doesn't have to be feasible. This does not have to be feasible. And I would rather, and if you look at the rubric, it says reasonable assumptions, and that your decision, your decision to whether or not it's feasible is reasonable. Okay, so if your feasibility section says, "Hey, in order to make this business work, the only way it's going to work is if I wake up tomorrow morning and the tooth fairy comes and leaves me $1 million under my pillow." Okay, is that reasonable? I don't believe that's reasonable. Okay, so I think I'm pretty fair with my reason. Anyway, once we have that, read all that stuff, we're going to make decisions. Is this feasible? And then we'll sum it all up in the executive summary and the business concept sections. Okay, and then put a fork in it. We're done. So going to the guidelines, okay, so we're going to stick to the guidelines page, okay, and this part, the cover page, the table of contents, the executive summary, the business concept. Um, oh, Dalton, I forgot to ask. Can you see this slide?
Yeah, yeah, I can see
Okay,
everything. You're good.
excellent, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so this is the last thing you're going to do. Okay, the business concept is basically nothing more than your log line, right? It's expanded. What's the business? Who's the customer? What's the value proposition? How does it benefit how's it going to be delivered? And what's the mission? How will the mission be fulfilled? It's one or two sentences. That's it. One or two sentences. That's your log line. The executive summary is broadening on that. Okay, and that's the thing that's going to summarize the whole thing. Obviously, the table of contents, you're not going to do that until you have pages. And the cover page, again, stick to the rubric. It tells you straight out, should be visually appealing, should have everybody's addresses, all their phone numbers, all their emails. The pain grid is where we started, and that's this class. This class is all about effectuation. Okay, it's all about effectuation. We start with a pain, a problem, but we're going to live within the bird in hand principle, which means we're only going to use the means that we have. Okay, the means that we have, the people that we know, and we're not going to risk what we can't afford to lose. No credit, no credit cards. We're not going to get stuck in that. Then we're going to start doing stuff and things are going to go wrong, very wrong. Everything we plan is going to be wrong and we're going to get lemons. We're going to take those lemons, we're going to put them into lemonade. That helps us understand who our customer is, but also allows us to put our crazy quilt of people together. The log line is the business concept. Okay. How can you explain this thing and how did it all come into fruition? And that's the piloting the plane process. So we said a long time ago we were going to put together all the people we knew, which are all the people that we know. Okay. But we're going to start with our personal ones. Then we're going to cross out the ones that are not interested in our business. I'll get to that in a second. We spent some time going to the library. We clicked on the library. We went to IBIS World. If we didn't, if you and so if you're just doing this now and you're like, this class could be done in a week, no question about it. Okay, and a good place to start is Sarah Hess. Click on the email Sarah Hess. She will help you. She's a library genius. She's always asking me, "Hey, Brad, send your people my way." Now, if you don't want to talk to Sarah, that's fine. Go to IBIS World. Okay, it's right there in the first pane. You can get all of the market information, all the industry information, a lot of the history stuff right there. You can start with as simple as, okay, pizza, right? Whatever your general topic is, and you'll find out all this stuff. Then now it's time to go back to the founding team and also the sales strategy. Okay. The founding team, we're going to take that original power interest grid and we're going to cross out all the people. Now, if there's 3 or 4 of you in a group, great. Then you take your 3 or 4 power interest grids, put them together, and start crossing out the people who don't care about your business. Okay, who don't care about it. Um, this okay, so this is acceptable. Okay, this is very good. This meets expectations. Okay, this is kind of borderline, but it's okay. Okay, okay. If all we have in there is Penn State students and Penn State teachers, without naming names, and I did promise this, no one will ever read your feasibility study other than me. I do not have any assistants. I don't have a TA. My faculty, my bosses will never read this. Only I will read these things. So be specific. Okay, be super specific. Who is the founding team? All the people. Okay. If the company actually exists, you better make sure that somewhere in that contract you have written down that the intellectual property within is not the property of any of the individuals named in the group. You should add that, okay? And if you look at the rubric, you'll see that it says include stuff talked about in class. This is one of those things that's talked about in class. Now, so we go back to the pain grid, right? And now the power interest grid now looks like this, okay? It's a startup advocate grid. It's different because instead of being power and interest, it's about pain share and resource availability. So are these people that you have, are they people that care about what you're working on, but also have resources that can assist you? And that's how we're going to grade everybody on this list. And remember, this takes us back to the whole concept of the course, right? We start within our means, and Inge Verkervis is the greatest of all examples I can think of effectuation in practice. Inge started with his own means, what he could do. Okay, he started by whitewater rafting and teaching canoeing, and then getting a couple of boats and getting some other people to help teach. And then he did that until he realized he couldn't do it anymore because nobody really wanted it. And then he realized, hey, you know what? We could make ice here, ice sculptures. And he put together a bunch of friends that he had met through teaching them how to kayak and canoe. And they did an ice sculpture show. And then it poured rain on it and it melted it. And the only things that stayed up were the igloos. And so the people who made the igloos were like, okay, well, next year, let's just do igloos. And so again, different people. And then the next year, they put together a big igloo all together. And they said, look at this beautiful thing. And it turned into the Ice Hotel. I mean, it's a great story. Be this entrepreneur. Okay. This is the best. You talk about entrepreneurial mindset. I can't think of a better example of the entrepreneurial mindset than Inge Verkervis. And this is what the cycle of effectuation looks like. You start with who you are, what you know, who you know. Then what can you do? You start doing stuff. Then you interact with people. Then those people become new stakeholders and they have new means. And those new means go back. And originally, where your first step was, you now have more means. It's an amazing process and it's a fantastic one. And remember, your network is not linear, okay? It should be planar, it should be exponential. All the people are interconnected. Now, I got this email, okay? I'm struggling with coming up with numbers here for my financial plan section. And as I'm going to be getting fruits and veggies from people's backyards, I don't know how to estimate how much I can get to sell. The population of my hometown is about 1,900 people, but I wasn't sure how I can make that number into sales. IBIS for farmers markets, which I think is the closest thing to what I'm going for. At this point, I'm looking to fill out my cash statement and income statement, and I have no inventory. What I have so far, let's see. The seller is going to set the price just as they would if it was sold in their front yard. Let's say the grower was already selling a cluster of tomatoes for $5. With this new business, we're introducing new customers and getting more people to buy, so we'll buy for $4. Now, we would then sell the cluster for the original five with $1 profit. If the grower was not already selling then the same thing happens. Buy for four, sell for five. This $1 profit in this hypothetical isn't much, but with many sales like this a day, it adds up. Then they wrote, okay, how much do you expect to sell? As different goods grow better at different times of the year, there'll definitely be times when we have a lot of a produce and times when we have little. This is also expected as times of low rain and changing weather. In good times of growth, I'd expect to have a lot of baskets of different produce and have lots of different options for customers. Then they wrote, okay, well, how much is it going to cost to produce? Well, from Y charts, and again, this student went on ycharts.com, which came up from IBIS Worlds. For the past year, this would cost me around $19, maybe 23. This would be for one day, and depending on demand, I expect to dedicate 2 days a week to this. See how specific this is? The average monthly would be 165 for gas if it's twice a week. Car insurance is 100, phones 20. All right, now this is my response. I say, excellent job so far. Where to go from here? Are you going to do the sales yourself? Okay. And this is really important. This really is what ties everything together. We all did our contract, right? If so, go to the contract. How many hours a week are you going to spend selling? How many people do you think you can realistically see and then close in a week? You're a full-time student. So I'm doubting that you have too many idle hours every week, right? Right, Dalton? We don't have a lot of idle hours. I'm guessing a couple, maybe two. I'm just making that up for this logical progression. You use what numbers you think. So that way, could you get 2 sales a week? How many veggies do you think all two would buy? 1 bushel each? Okay, so let's say you get 8 sales for the month. You may not be able to keep that number up for a whole year, but let's go with you get 24 for the whole year. So that's 24 bushels for the year. How much do you think you could get for a bushel? How about $10? So that's $240 in sales for the year. Now we're going to the income statement. Sales for 1 year, $240. Will you get the cash when you drop off the veggies? I'm assuming they'll hand you cash. Great. That's 1 month, month one cash flow, begins cash 0, ends cash $80. Now, you're not going to keep inventory because you're going to just pick up the veggies and drop them off. You're drop shipping, same trip, or have the farmer drop that, aka drop ship. And the industry numbers stay in the industry section. Okay. They do not go into the financial section. Does this make any sense or help at all? So, this is how the financial plan works. Now, remember, we've got income statement for 3 years. Okay. And that's just annual. Okay. So, you have 3 income statements. And the cash flow is monthly. So, you have 12 of those. 12 of those. And remember this at any point, if the ending cash of any month is less than 0, your business is bankrupt, bankrupt, bankrupt. It is no longer feasible. In fact, there is no better example of it not being feasible than ending cash at any time being less than 0. The income statement doesn't matter. It does not matter. The profit could be 0. It could be -5. It could be -100. That part does not matter. What does matter is ending cash can never be less than 0 or you are bankrupt. You can't make payroll. Remember what this thing is? It's the balance sheet. Do you need to have a balance sheet in your paper? No, you don't. Is it good to have one? Well, yeah, we talked about that a couple weeks ago. Remember this, okay? We're not doing this. We're not going to say, hey, there's $1 million spent on Japanese food and I just need 1% of it. No, do not use that for sales revenue. Instead, one salesperson, 10 contacts a week, 2 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. That's how you get that number. Okay, we do this. Okay, and it has to go into the financial section as assumptions. In other words, you are going to say where you got that number. So you don't just put numbers on the income statement. You have to say where they came from and how they came from, and that has to fit. That has to fit with, most importantly, your sales plan. Okay. And I do expect to see a break even analysis. Okay. Remember that. And also remember, just follow right along here with Snapflate. That's why I shared these numbers with you so that you can just basically copy the way I did it. And you're perfectly cool with that. All right. So the next thing is uh, we need a puppy picture. Here's our favorite puppy picture, my favorite puppy picture. And I got a question for you. Okay. What would you call the shape of this puppy? Okay, that was it. That was the pop attendance quiz for tonight. Tell me what the shape of that puppy was. I don't know. I'll let you decide. All right. But the financial stuff, all we're really trying to do is figure out that we cover the startup costs. Okay. All the operations until we break even, any losses incurred until the break even point, and keep asking ourselves questions why? Why? If any of the startup stuff is like, I need a phone, or I need a computer, or I need a car, why? Okay. I need an office. Why? I need a place to work. Why? What are things that you can cross off the list as you're going through this guy here, right? Do I need a rent? Do I need a hangar? Why? Cross it out. Do I need to own a plane? No, maybe not. Cross it out. Do I need insurance? Yes. Do I need a phone? Do you have to account for that? Maybe not. Okay, so this is the question that we need to do. Why? And at the end of the day, okay, when we get done with this whole paper, the final pain grid that you include in your feasibility study, if there is anything in the still needed column, all I need is you got to get rid of that. Okay. If there's anything in there, it's not feasible. And by need, what do I mean by need? If I started a flight school, do I need an airplane? Do I need to own an airplane? No. Do I need an airplane to teach in? Yes. Could I possibly teach airplane flying without an airplane? No. You see the difference there? Do I need to own a plane? No. Should that go in the need column? No. Do I need to own any specific kind of airplane, a Cessna 182 or a Cy Marchetti, some expensive fancy plane? No, no, I do not need that. Do I need access to a plane? Yes. That is how that works. Remove it, or it is not feasible. Okay, financial plan. And finally, the feasibility decision. If it doesn't matter, if it's not feasible, it does not matter. It does not matter. You know what matters? If it's not feasible, you need to say what needs to change to make it feasible. Are there specific market conditions? Is it impossible? And again, the same thing here with the timeline to launch, the bibliography and the appendices. Look, the timeline to launch is assuming it is feasible. Yes, put that in there if this good thing happens. All right. We talked about this last week. The point of purchase intercept is due with it. Okay. The final assignment before the presentation is you're going to do a practice sales presentation on somebody, any person. They're going to either give you money, actual money, or not. Okay. And you're going to explain if they didn't give you actually money, why not? And you do that in this little video here that's a minute long saying, okay, well, I sold it to them and they said they were not interested. Then, separate from that, is your sales presentation, which I gave you an example of. Just look at last week's video. I did one for the, here, if I can stop the sharing here.